Hi everyone, welcome to Mobile DevOps is a Thing, podcast by Bitrise showcasing mobile developers from all around the world, talking about their unique development processes. In this podcast, we talk about the process and not the code. We'd like to help developers discover new techniques and non-developers understand why mobile is different compared to web development. I'm Nora Basie, and I'm here today with Anna Batsky.
Hi all!
And this episode is actually extra special because we're here in Saint Petersburg in a recording studio with today's guest, Vladimir Ivanov from EPAM.
Hi.
Hi, Vladimir. How are you?
Great. Thank you. This is a great opportunity being here with you too. So I'm super thrilled.
We are too.
Thank you so much for coming to this podcast. And to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Vladimir Ivanov. I'm a solution architect at EPAM Systems. So this basically means that I'm designing the mobile-centric solutions for living, but not only mobile, but like the systems in general.
Can you give us a few examples? Like what kind of projects do you have?
Those were different projects. So small ones for e-commerce applications. Some of the enterprise, file access solutions, mobile as well. Right now, I'm designing and implementing actually some internal tools for a big retailer. So the whole variety of the projects.
From big to small? Oh, no. From small to big?
Again. Yeah, from big to small. So there are projects with like 2 or 3 developers to the projects with, 50 developers. So it's really different. Really different from the business perspective. So maybe financial ones or some e-commerce, for example, selling chocolate to your neighbors and friends. Yeah, we had
How
those
does
ones.
that work?
Well, it's, I don't know how it's called, social marketing, when you, there are big cosmetic brands that do that.
Mm-hmm.
So some, chocolate manufacturers are adopting the same model and they use mobile apps for that. So they have mobile application for the consumer and for the vendor. And they can exchange the orders and see the status and pay with the mobile application. So nowadays, like everyone is having a mobile phone or 2, and they're doing a lot of their lives there in the mobile device.
Okay, so I want to sell chocolates. That's a really good job. And I want you to do what exactly?
So you come to us and say, hey, not only I need an app, I need a technical solution that will make my job easier, more convenient so that I can earn more money. And we're like, hey, okay, so what do you want? Who are your customer? So what business processes do you have? What are the main pain points? And we try to understand what is the most difficult thing in your job so that we can make it easier with software. So we can come up maybe with a website, maybe with a mobile application, with some backend stuff to back it up, of course. And we do the whole solution for you. And we're interacting with you like, hey, so we're doing this one. This is the design. This is the mobile app. This is the draft version. We're doing agile like everybody else. But we believe we're really good at agile. So we show you step by step what is the process, how the mobile app advances, how it makes some parts of the process easier. Then we release it. We help you with the support, fixing in bugs, improving the applications, doing new versions, and so on. So that's kind of our missions to help the businesses grow.
Okay, so you work basically from the beginning to the kind of the end of the cycle, and then
yes. So we do everything from business consultancy at the first stages to the support phases. But some part of our job happened to be like the simple staff augmentation. We just give people. So somebody comes to us, say, hey, we have a mobile application, we want to go faster. Give us, I don't know, Android developers, iOS developers. So we do that as well.
And during this process, how closely are you working together with other teams at EPAM, for example, product or QA teams or UI, UX design?
We do everything really close. Mm-hmm. So we have, for one of the projects, for example, we had 2 teams, like the design team, UX/UI, and the development team. And they were doing agile. So they did the same sprints, but, the design sprints, and they go ahead one sprint. So basically, when we need it, we already have it because they did it, everything. And we have agile teams. So it's like several mobile developers, 1 or 2 backend developer, they designed a QA automation, maybe manual QA. So we have the whole agile team. We work that way.
Yeah, because this is one of the main points of DevOps, to bring these teams closer together and just to encourage better collaboration between them. So what do you think? Do you think this whole process is different in mobile teams compared to web development teams?
Yeah, there are a lot of specifics in mobile that differentiate. But there are several aspects here. So first of all, this is still software development, and this is kind of manufacturing process. If you can take a look on the theory of constraint and this lean development approach and all that stuff that Toyota shared with the pipelines, with lean manufacturing and so on. So your value, so if you're a plant and you, manufacture piece of furniture, right? Mm-hmm. You have, chairs, tables, and you need some raw materials to process it, then to control the quality, then to ship it. So with the software development, it's kind of the same, but so you don't manufacture the pieces, you manufacture user stories. So user stories bring business value. So you have the whole pipeline for the user story. So for some piece of value. So you have the requirements. This is the first stage, requirements in design. As the first stage, then you start coding this, then you ship it to your internal QA team, and it verifies that and ship it to the customer. So it brings the value. So all the principles for optimizing this process according to the theory constraints is pretty much the same. So you find the bottleneck, optimize it, find the next one, optimize it as well. And the DevOps thing is helping a lot here. So because you have a lot of moving parts, and you need to be sure that your changes can be, well, first of all, verified as soon as possible, then delivered to the QA as soon as possible. And once it's ready, just one click to the next stage. So yeah, this is essential part of the development. The second part is that, yeah, we have a software development, but every platform has its own specifics. And in web development, for example, you can just bundle your web app and to your engines, or to S3 in AWS, and you got it. But in mobile development, you have more moving parts. You have the code signature, you have the compilation thing. Well, after tests are a bit more complicated because you need to have these simulators. Mm-hmm. The tests are really slow
and flaky.
And flaky. And there's I'm not sure I can call it an industry, but there are a lot of movement, a lot of projects in just to improve the aspect of after tests within mobile. So we have friends. I hope this is not a terrible thing to say, but we have friends in Kaspersky Lab, and they're doing their own thing around Espresso, which is a test automation framework for Android. So they're doing Kaspresso, and it tries to resolve these flaky things, providing some tools or automating some manual things like repeating the tests and supporting the thing is if the test passed once in a batch, then it's fine. So the errors are just flakiness and so on. So yeah, this is the thing. There's a lot of specific in mobile DevOps.
What do you think is the most problematic part?
When I started really digging in, the most complicated thing was the signature, of course.
The code signing.
Yeah, the code signing. Well, for Android is more or less because you need a key store, several strings, and you're basically done. So even if you have a float key or you have the master key on your computer, whatever, you may work around this.
Yeah, 2 minutes and
it's not expiring. It doesn't do anything. It's just there. But for iOS, it's provisioning profile, certificate password. You need to store that securely. You need to do, if you're bootstrapping a project, you need to go to developer.apple.com and request all these things. And chances are you don't have enough rights for that.
And then even if you get them, they expire.
Yeah, they expire every 2 months. We experience this a lot at EPAM systems because we have kind of eternal apps. So, for example, we have EPAM Connect that allow you to report your time, for example, or to see the org chart, or to find the contacts, or, book a room. And we have several other apps. So for customers and, for example, marketing our benefits as an HR brand, as an employer. And all of those require signing, of course, because we try to push it to Apple Store. And like we have a policy that we rotate because security, right? So we rotate all the certificates every 3 months. And as I'm support of the mobile CI/CD, mobile thing in EPAM, so we have these letters coming every quarter, like, hey, the certificate expired another time. So can you please do it something about it? Yeah.
And what's the easiest part? What is that you feel that it's like a breeze?
I believe the compilation is like the easiest one because essentially it's just calling Xcode build or Gradle, and that's it. So almost for every project. But this is just the middle step of your build process, right? Because before you need to install the dependencies. And maybe you have a lot of dependencies. If you rebuild it by yourself, it takes a lot of time. You don't want to wait. So from another step, you need to deploy your app after the building. And then first of all, you need to figure out where you want to deploy it to. So then you need to actually deploy it. And those are new secrets that you need to manage somehow. And yeah.
So you mentioned that there are a lot of different types of platforms, and then this fragmentation, and that especially Android is really fragmented, is one of the biggest challenges of developing for mobile. And because of this, testing becomes a lot more important. Can you talk a little bit about your testing processes? What kind of test automations do you do?
Well, we try to do everything. So we have a program called Engineering Excellence. So we maintain a list of best practices to support the quality in mobile applications, especially at scale. So we try to do everything. So static analysis, quality gates, unit tests for sure, end-to-end, integration tests that are trying to test the whole feature, this instrumentation tests for Android. Then we try to have end-to-end tests. We usually go with Appium, or for React Native, for example, we use Detox for that. And we try to employ, the best practices. Once we have all the checks in line, we try to have them all run on the CI/CD, if we're using Bitrise or not. And to, for example, fail in the build if somebody hasn't passed that, or disable the merge button if the quality gate is not passed. Even if you have the coverage below some line, you don't have the ability to merge the pull request because it worsens the code.
So you have a strict rule for code coverage?
Yes. Well, it depends from project to project. And this is where mobile specific can play, I think, because, for example, for enterprise project, for web project, for backend especially, you can have easily 70% of coverage because everything doesn't depend on anything else. So you have everything separated. You have plain classes. If there are any, for example, Spring dependencies, you just mock them. It's super easy. You cover everything with test. With mobile, you have a lot of things dependent on the platform, and it's a huge pain, especially for Android, right? And there's this RoboElectric thing that was acquired by Google and I believe killed eventually. There's a lot of complaint. Even today, if you open my Twitter feed today, and there will be the whole discussion about the RoboElectric being an absolute complete mess nowadays. So the tests are utterly broken.
It's really interesting because a couple of weeks ago, we did some data check, checking how many of the apps are using tests. And actually, we had a pretty bad result. Even if some of the tests are default in the workflows, they still don't really run them. People actually delete the default tests. Yes, a lot of people just don't do testing, which is very surprising for me. I can't remember the percentage at the moment, but it was really shocking.
This is weird.
Yes.
So typically we don't, push on the project. We got 30% percentage of coverage. Well, at least for unit tests. And with all those frameworks, MVVM, MVI to MVP. Well, it's not kind of frameworks. It's an approach for the view layer, right? So it's not even the architecture, right? It tries to abstract the platform thing for your tests so that you can test everything else. This works, really works. I believe it's pretty similar because you have a user story, you have some code, you build it, deploy it, test it, and well, I don't see any specific here.
I was just curious.
Okay.
As a solutions architect, I was wondering if you've ever had to reinvent processes in your team, or did you have to come up with new solutions because you kind of oversee the whole process?
Yeah, this is the part of the responsibility, is that you really care about quality, because if not you, then who? Because, the delivery manager, she wants to just deliver. Hey, we're done. The developers want to just code their feature. So your responsibility is to care about the quality. So once we had a project, it's called in EPAM events. So we have kind of event platform where we announce some of our huge conferences or maybe local meetups, and you can manage RSVPs there and so on. So when I came to be a solution architect there, so we had Jenkins as our mobile CI. We didn't have really tests. So we didn't have the checks enabled and so on. And there was a mess. So because we hadn't have any process to carefully hand over the builds and so on. So when I came, we were in the process of evaluating Bitrise as our CI/CD platform of choice. And I said, hey, people, you don't have tests. You're not making sure they're run. If you try to run them, they are slow. We don't deploy it properly. So we have big amount of problems. So we need to solve it in a system, not by nitpicking. I introduced the whole process there. We had Bitrise to run everything, to check out the code, install the dependencies, because this was a React Native app, then build Android app, iOS app. We had several apps for that. And even more, we had apps for each stage, for example, the QA, the prod, and so on. Then I worked on the tests and the speed of tests and so on, the reliability, made sure that everybody is running those tests before the commit. Because, you have a React Native app, you have a huge amount of dependencies, then you need to wait for the native part to be compiled, then to be packaged, deployed, and so on. If you have the failing tests after the build process, you wasted 20 minutes of waiting of a developer. So we decided, hey, let's run tests before every commit. We made sure with the pre-commit hook that the lint check and the tests, they are run before the commit, before the push. This was introduced, and then we had it all in the system. So we have this whole pipeline reinvented for the whole project.
Was it difficult to make people understand that you actually need this and that they need to accept that you need a process?
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that many teams that we've talked to, when they are asked if they are doing DevOps or not, or they have processes implemented, they think that they need a specific person whose title is something like DevOps, whatever. In fact, they might actually be already doing DevOps processes and have proper practices implemented, but they think they're not doing it because there's no DevOps person there. So
it depends very much on the team already. And I'm not sure, maybe on the maturity of the people. In that particular case, everybody was like, yeah, let's do that. We struggle with the project so much. We need to do something. Yeah, tests. Okay, perfect. Cool. CI/CD pipeline. Super cool. Deployment to some tool. Wow, awesome. So it was like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. But I met people who was like, well, I don't believe in this. No. So, and
did they tell you why?
Well, not really, because if you start to digging it up, it's a good thing anyway. We'll have the benefits. So it's more like, I don't know, resistance to something new. Maybe some deep psychological problem that, well, I don't know that thing, so I'm not going to learn that, so I will just push back.
Mm-hmm. I have a question that's kind of a chicken or the egg question. You said that DevOps is a culture, but it's also a tool set. And I was wondering if you have Any thoughts on which comes first? Or obviously they come together as well, but do you think a mindset change comes first within a team, or a great tool set that serves as a great foundation to connect all the team members?
Okay, that's a good question. I think I have an opinion for this. I'm basing it on the book Site Reliability Engineering from Google. So there's a bunch of engineers and engineering managers from Google. They wrote a book about how they transformed the whole company essentially to those new principles. And they mention as the root cause is that, okay, you have a developers, you have operational, right? And you have an essential conflict between them because the KPIs for both teams or both group of peoples are different in the root. Developers want their features as soon as possible deployed to the production and the business value as well. But for the operational team, they want to deploy as rare as possible to avoid, disturbance. Because if the service is stable, their KPIs are met. So they have this conflict. The new culture, right, this DevOps thing, they try to remove this conflict from the situation, right, and make everybody be friends and doing the same thing. So once you have this thing in place, tools will come.
Yeah, it's like kind of the difference between the waterfall and the continuous integration and continuous delivery approach, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's a great analogy.
So you mentioned that the tools will come. So do you have any tools in mind that you think are really great, especially for DevOps? And what kind of tools do you use just in the pipeline?
Well,
anything.
Well, okay. Typically, you will have to store your code somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And perform pull requests, code reviews, and so on. So this thing comes first because, well, this is essentially first step. We use GitLab internally, so hosted version. We do everything there for internal projects and for the projects where customer doesn't care or don't have their own, solution in place already. For example, I don't know, GitHub or GitLab hosted as well, and so on. So then we need to build and deploy somewhere. Our tool of choice is Bitrise, right? Yeah. This is the reason I'm here.
Never heard of it.
And we're really happy about that. So we have some questions, but I think we're in a constant process of communicating. That's a great thing. Then we need to ship it. I know that Bitrise has its own solution, but we're preferring to use App Center. Mm-hmm. So it's totally free. It's very fast. Provides sufficient level of, the security bit so that you can have groups, distribute the apps publicly, and so on. And then, of course, we need some tools to run end-to-end tests and so on. But lately, I didn't have any experience with this one. Basically, our pipeline is 3 major tools, right? So GitLab, Bitrise, and App Center. And this is the default setup that we have, out of the box for every new project. But you can go with your own setup. I believe I had a talk on this, so go and check.
In Berlin?
Yes, in Berlin. But there's no recording for Berlin. There's the recording for somewhere else. I'm not sure.
Okay, we're going to have a look.
Yeah, there's a conference in Russia that is called DevOps.
Yeah.
Perfect name.
Yeah. I think they broke their head.
But I've just recently heard this word DevOps, and it's supposed to mean a scenario when something goes really wrong in your processes.
Yeah, kind of. So.
Have you ever had something like this happen to you?
I'm not sure I can come up with anything like that.
Oh, that's lucky.
You just don't want to embarrass yourself, right?
No,
just kidding.
Honestly, don't remember. I don't mind. So
okay, you can tell somebody else's story if you can.
No, not really. I can mention that in mobile, going back to the specifics of mobile development. So for a web app, you can build it anywhere, right? So Linux machine, Windows machine, just throw it. Use, I don't know, Babel, NPM, whatever node, whatever works for you. For mobile development, so you're building an iOS app, you need Mac hardware because you can't virtualize Mac. So Mac hardware, you need either buy it or rent it from somewhere. The major cloud solutions don't provide Mac machines out of the box. So you need to find some service. So this is hard. Or maybe you already have some machines, so you need to connect them somehow. For example, I know that App Center, that is actually a part of Azure DevOps, they provide the possibility for you to connect your hardware pool to their cloud. For example, you can build iOS apps on your own hardware. This is a good thing. We went that road for one of the projects. So yeah, this is a separate pain.
Like getting the infrastructure?
The hardware, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody is saying, hey, cloud. No, not really.
Why not?
Well, as I mentioned, if you, for example, you have a privacy concern, so you have something in your SOW that your code shouldn't leave anything, it shouldn't be virtually run on the other hardware, then you're doomed to cope with this thing.
What about private cloud solutions where the virtual machines get destroyed after you use them? Have you ever used anything like that?
Well, virtual machines get destroyed, especially if you pick the option for that. But it's not about the virtual machine, it's about the hardware. So for private cloud, I believe you can have a part of the data center being isolated for you. So nobody is using this, but still this hardware is controlled by somebody else. For example, if you're working for a big retailer, you're not willing to use Amazon Cloud because they're doing a lot of retail and there's an essential risk that they look into your data. Well, I know that the cloud is claiming itself like we're end-to-end, but WhatsApp claiming they're end-to-end too, but not really.
What would you say the biggest misconceptions are when we talk about mobile development? So what is it that you often hear people talking about? For example, oh, it's so much easier than web development or something similar.
Well, I would say the opposite is that, hey, mobile development, it's so hard. There are a lot of technologies. I don't want to buy a MacBook to be able to bring an iOS app and so on. So everybody is concerned about the entrance level that you need to match in order to be able to do something. And every once in a while, a person approaches me and says, hey, I want to learn mobile development. What should I pick? And I was like, okay, what do you want to do? I just want to, make apps. And recently I started telling people, hey, go Flutter. It's like super easy to go. The Dart is really easy to learn. It's like something similar to JavaScript, but with types. So you got that going for you. Everything works out of the box. So, there are a lot of comparison between Flutter and React Native. And everybody's complaining that setting up a project in React Native is really complicated. I had the opposite experience, but a lot of people saying React Native is hard to, bootstrap. And it's opposite for Flutter. So it's like, hey, we're doing this. If you're super new to mobile development, try Flutter. This is very good. If you're thinking about a strategic investment and if you want to do like mobile apps for your career, of course, go native. Go Kotlin, go Swift, because it always will be there for a list of reasons. So do you think Flutter is going to become more and more popular when someone wants to do cross-platform and it's going to be more popular than React Native? Well, it is already coming a popular thing. I know a lot of companies that are investing hardly in Flutter. There are two major concerns for Flutter, is that it's Dart, and you virtually have 2.5 Dart developers in the world. And the second one is that it's Google, and Google is very keen to, kill their projects out of nowhere. Like it happened with Android things. The week one, they were telling, hey, production support for 3 years is guaranteed, and the week two, they said, oh, we killed the project. So screw you. Okay, and what's going to happen then if they kill Flutter? Well, they have, this thing that they have Kotlin for Android and Jetpack Compose coming up, bringing the, this declarative thing to Android. And they have Flutter that is doing the same declarative approach, but with Flutter. And I think this is kind of tension between the platforms, and every major Google event has those questions coming. Like, hey, what do you do? What is the preference? Yeah, but Flutter is definitely becoming more popular. So there's service companies like ours, but smaller, investing hardly in Flutter. We're kind of investing in Flutter because we have, we have a big mobile competency, we have sub-competencies like native Android, native iOS, React Native, Flutter, Xamarin, and this strange thing, Cordova, Ionic.
I know that.
Yeah, so me being as a developer, I hate Cordova like with all my soul. But recently I had to sell it to the client because they were like, we want web technologies, but we have those requirements. I was like, okay, let's do PWA, but then PWA didn't match because of the limitations. And I was like, okay, Apache Cordova. I hated myself in that moment.
In your line of job, is there a big difference in a project if you choose, for example, Cordova or Xamarin or React Native? Is there a big difference in how things are done?
No, for me already, no. It's more like how do we integrate mobile app with the backend? What are the third-party services?
And why do you hate Cordova?
Well, because it brings, a very crappy apps to the market. Because, essentially you have a browser with, with the name and the possibility to install it. And the user experience is suboptimal. Let's say it like this. Well, somebody tells that React Native brings, suboptimal experience. But if you do it properly, it feels like native. Not for MS Teams, but still. But with Apache Cordova, you're never going to reach the near.
Do you have any examples in mind of these suboptimal user experiences?
Well, even with React Native, if you try this app, even for the desktop, so they went fully cross-platform. I believe they have either React or React Native web application for the site, right? So they have the same site inside the desktop app, and you can easily verify that if you press Command-R or Control-R on Windows, it will, restart. Even if you're in a meeting, it will restart. And the same thing happens with the mobile application too. So they have React Native application there as well. Yeah, the experience is not very good. I have another example. So we have this thing in Russia. There are a lot of, services that can bring food to you, not only from the restaurants, but bring the packets with the sliced ingredients and with the recipe. So you can cook it right there with only the ingredients you really need.
Oh,
so,
that's really convenient.
Yeah, this is super cool. We personally use it a lot. But Yandex killed their product. It was really good, but they just closed the service out of nowhere. So we started trying new services like the alternatives, and we picked one. But the application was what? So I believe it was like a browser in the app, so kind of a Cordova. The experience was so slow. It was like downloading everything very, very slowly. It was like, you try to scroll and then things for half a year to scroll it and then so on. So yeah, we shouldn't bring this to the market. We should use the appropriate technology to bring the proper user experience.
Yeah, so with mobile, if you have a not so great user experience, you just delete the app and
yeah, exactly. Immediately, like, go.
So this is why it's really important to create an app with great user experience. I was wondering what you do. How do you achieve this? Do you do stage releases or feature flags?
Yeah, all of that depends on the project. But on different projects, we definitely use different things. And I know other companies that rely heavily on feature flags. For example, we have an Avito app here. So it's like a board for posting. If you want to sell something that you don't need anymore, like a piece of clothes or anything else or an old guitar.
Like a marketplace?
Well, yeah, kind of. So you just post an announcement there and sell it. So it's really big here in Russia. And they have a huge mobile development department. And they have talks about that. So they use feature flags, stage releases, rollouts, and so on. And we do that as well for the majority of our apps. As we have the support from the Google Play and App Store, so we do that. Even for the API, we have this connection between the Bitrise and Google Play. So we have this plugin that can deploy. And it can deploy the release, and it can do it for a particular percentage of the users. So we do exactly that. We deploy, we see the metrics, we see that we don't have any new crashes there, the old ones are going away, and so on. And then if it is like that, we're increasing the percent, right?
Have you ever had a dead canary?
Dead canary? Yeah. I have a couple of embarrassing stories.
Oh, cool. Shoot.
Finally.
Yeah, so The first one, we didn't use the canaries there. This is the reason to actually use it. So we rolled out a new version of the app that we're using, the Android Key Store, and it was like around the times of Android 5 or 6, not really remember. But we deployed new code that we're using Key Store, and we messed up badly. And during some of the restoration process, or after the updating the app, the Key Store got broken, and we started to get thousands of crashes a day. It was just, ooh, and it was a huge escalation for the client. Like, the US started. It was like, and we didn't understand what went wrong. So we started to put, some fixes to fix it. And it took a couple of weeks to figure out and roll out a fix that was, crazy thing.
So you had at least one DevOps moment.
But another story, when we used actually feature flags and stage rollouts, and it was much more, more smooth. Yeah, we rolled out for like 5% of the users. So we had those increase in the crash rates. We're like, okay, thanks God, it's like 5%. We figured out what was we rolled back. Well, it's not the rollback that you use in web development. No blue-green deployments, for example, right? We created a new version that was rolling back the changes, published another time, and so on. Then we figured out what was the problem, created the fix, creating another new version, rolled out another time for 5%, ensure that everything is fine. Then, okay, so we're escalating to 25, to 50, to 100%. Please use feature flags. Please use canary deployments. It can literally save your business. The big thing missing in mobile development is that you don't have automatic rollback. You don't have all these versions, so interchangeable between each other. And I believe you virtually won't ever have this because your application doesn't run in a controlled environment. It is the environment of the phone of your end user. You can't control this. And I already said that in other places, one of the choices is obviously feature flags. And the second one is the solutions that allow you to change the code on the fly with the code push, for example. React Native, for example.
But you still need to get the update approved, for example, for iOS, right?
Well, if you're doing code push, no.
No?
No. The whole mechanism is that the application goes to the server and asks if there's a new bundle version. So it's not the whole app, but just the JavaScript bundle. And if there's a new one, it downloads it, it applies and runs with a new version. So you can update your application like every day. But for mobile, for example, I think nobody does that every day. The typical cycle is a week. Even you have the most advanced DevOps process in the world, you don't do that more frequently than a week because, your product manager is like, hey, we need to, gather all the metrics because nobody is updating instantly. There's a process of adapting the new version, right? Because nobody have these automatic updates on their phones. This is one of the problems from the DevOps perspective, right? So nobody is getting everything new.
That's interesting because actually I have some statistics on deployment data, and it's rather 2-3 times a week than once a week.
Okay. So maybe I don't see the whole picture, so it's perfectly fine.
It's really interesting all the time looking into other people's processes and how they do stuff, how often do they do releases and tests and whatever, because everybody's doing it in a different way. That's one of the most problematic thing about DevOps, that if you try to define it, it's really difficult because you come up with a definition that works for you or your company, but if you talk to another person from another company, then it's totally different. And now we're there. How would you sum up in 2-3 sentences max DevOps?
Okay, so for me, DevOps
mobile DevOps. Let's be even more specific.
Let's do both.
Okay, let's do both.
Why not both? Okay.
You choose.
Okay, so for me, DevOps is a set of principles that you need to adhere to be, this way. It's automation of almost everything. It's continuous integration deployment. It's the possibility to roll back, which is not kind of available for mobile. And it's canary stage deployments. If you're doing this, you're kind of DevOps. Okay?
Okay.
Without a dedicated DevOps person.
And was this mobile DevOps or DevOps as such?
Well, I think in general. And the funny thing about DevOps, when I was preparing for my talk, I was like searching the sites to come up with, a definition, a set of principles, because, comparing to Agile, you have the manifesto and it's the same for everybody. Well, you can treat it in a different way, but the set is the same.
Yeah, but even Agile gets...
Yeah. But for DevOps, every new site was bringing me a new list. I was like, what? So we don't know what we're talking about. So I combined a list for myself and used it. And somebody was like, hey, can I please steal it from you? Can I use it in my slides, please?
And
it happens quite a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things about DevOps is that it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Whatever we talk about today might not even be relevant in 6 months or so.
Well, let's hope that the basics will stay the same, testing and stuff.
Can I please skip it? Because I recalled another thing. It's monitoring, the constant monitoring that is both in place for front or backend development and for mobile. Well, we have, again, some specifics in mobile because this uncontrolled environment, but monitoring is still in place. You can monitor for crashes, for memory consumptions, post factum, but you can. What else? You can store it somewhere. You can process it post factum again, but you have this monitoring in place, and this is one of the part that makes DevOps.
Do you have any predictions, or do you see any future trends that will likely come into the picture?
Well, I believe that the maturity of the process will come to more players in the market. Mm-hmm. So the demand will grow for both the tools and the approaches and the people who practice the approaches of this DevOps thing. Mm-hmm. So it is already a huge thing in, backend, front end, all this enterprise stuff. So it's just a matter of time when it will take the same scale for the mobile.
Mm-hmm. And what if all of these new third-party tools just come into the picture and people and developers will eventually get really tired of hundreds of tools? What do you think will happen then?
The competition,
Yeah, probably a lot of them will disappear.
Well, what is interesting in IT is that you always have several alternatives and you never can go with one for everything because you always have some constraints in your project. From the legal perspective, I don't know, from the technical ones, from the licenses they already bought for your client or for yourself or whatever else. Obviously, we'll have like 5-6 major players on this one. And we'll see.
Do you see other mobile developer teams consciously implementing DevOps practices? Not in your team, but just in general. Do you think they know what it is or are they trying?
Well, yeah, I see the teams trying, but this is a strange thing because for some set of teams, they have this separate DevOps guy, whatever it means. And usually this person, he's like from the DevOps practice. So he's coming from, this cloud thingy, from the backend and so on. And they try to learn mobile stuff on the go. And it doesn't work really well. So there are a lot of caveats, a lot of, wasted time because, the person needs to learn. I think we really lack this DevOps specific in mobile. On the other hand side, there are teams, they don't have a specific person and they are so small that they don't have time to make it by themselves and they really suffer. They need this help. So somebody should come and say, hey, let's implement the proper process.
And what do you think the biggest mistake is that they can do, or something that maybe happened to you, probably not to you? Any example they could learn from?
I'm not sure about the example. I would say that doing things right from the beginning can save you a lot of time in the future. Mm-hmm. So if you bootstrap new mobile application, even it will have like 3 screens, right? And 1 server with 5 API calls. Do them this CI/CD thing, automate these deployments, because it will allow you to focus on the business features and not on the process of supporting and handing over. For example, the history of the long time ago, when I was beginning my career as a mobile developer, I was doing some project for a customer. It was horrible from the process perspective because when I finished the code and testing it by myself, I was like, doing the compilation in IntelliJ IDEA because there were no Android Studio at that time. Then packed it up, then zip it, then upload it to Google Drive all manually, then writing in email, attaching the shared link there and saying, hey, this is the new version. I don't really remember what it contains, but this last feature I was working on, it is definitely there.
Good old times.
Yeah, good old times. And I'm so happy I don't have to do that again. So, and for every mobile team, I'm saying, hey, let's do the proper process.
Why? Attaching stuff to emails is so much.
Yeah, it's so fun.
It's so fun, isn't it?
Yeah, but
especially when you send it without the attachment, like see the attachment.
Yeah, I forgot the attachment for the third time in a row.
It's a Gmail problem, wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly.
So you think everybody should start implementing processes from the very beginning?
Yes, even your like 2-person team, do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
well, not only it will ease your life, it will allow you to learn something new and apply it in the future projects.
And then if you grow, you can scale.
Yeah, definitely. So just add people to your team.
Okay. Any other good advice for beginners?
Brush your teeth, exercise,
No.
and sleep well. Because this is crucial. And learn constantly.
So going back to mistakes, we were recently in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, on an iOS conference, and we spoke to a lot of attendees who are mobile developers. And when we asked them what kind of CI/CD tool they use, quite a few of them said nothing. What would you say about that?
Why?
Well, we asked the same question.
And we tried to explain to them that it can make things a lot faster. And when we asked how long certain processes take, they were like, I don't know, a couple of hours, couple of days. And then we were trying to tell them that they can make it so much faster. And some of them were actually like, but it's okay like this.
Yeah.
You know the image with the dog with the burning house saying
it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, exactly.
It's like that.
It's fine. I think people afraid from time to time to try something new. And they're like, it's fine. I don't want to learn. Well, I understand. Sometimes you have, this emotional state of yours that you don't want to do anything. Like you're kind of a little bit burned out. You're too tired and so on. And it can take you for a week or two. Okay. I understand those kind of situations, but usually you're not. And if you're not, go make your life easier because your future self will say thank you or blame you if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't start your processes from early on, then it might be the blame one.
Yeah. And always when you try to pick up a new process, you will have some problems, right? And if you're already bringing the whole new complex process to already complex app, you will have both the errors from the application misconfiguration and from the fact that you don't know your tools that you're trying to get on the project. And if you're doing this from the beginning, you have very little code and very little place to mess up, right? So if you see that something is not working, the scope that you need to search is really narrow. So you can bootstrap the whole thing very fast. And then afterwards, when your application grows, then you already have the knowledge of your tools. And when something is broken, it's not the service. It's like my build Gradle file, for example. So it's much, much easier that way. Start from the beginning.
What do you think is kind of a hot topic within DevOps now that everyone's talking about, or something that's really important to discuss?
I'm not sure, but from my perspective, I think the scale is the whole topic.
Mm-hmm.
So you can easily configure your system to, bring up a Docker container, build something, test something, and go with live. But if you do it, say, for 50 applications, if you do it for 500 applications, so what do you do? What approaches what teams do you need? How do you structure your whole world around this scale? So
I think nobody thinks about that when they only have five something, and then when they get to 50, then they start thinking that
I need to quit.
Yeah. And then comes 500, and then everybody's freaking out. I've seen that a couple of times.
So right now we're trying to build the whole system about the mobile best practices, and quality assurance for scale, because with one project, you can come to delivery manager or to the key tech specialist and say, hey, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Like, call me in a week, say you did it all. But if you have 80 projects or 100 projects, it's much more complicated. And it's complex from several perspectives. For example, it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. First of all, you need the processes from the bureaucracy thing. So you need everything to be written down and agreed upon and approved and so on. Then you need the tools support. Then you need those tools to be configured according to those rules. Then you need to have the processes to figure out if somebody is messing up. You need the process how to go and help them. You need to organize the knowledge around this. So this is my personal goal for 2020. So
well, good luck for that.
Yeah,
and about the documentation of these best practices and processes, what do you use or how do you document your processes? How do you make sure everything is trackable?
Trackable from the process perspective?
Like any new hire can find the resources and like the whole team can see them. How would you describe trackable? You can backtrack everything you've done.
Well, this is not a DevOps related, I think, because
a little bit.
We as a service company, well, we have different projects, customers, accounts, and so on. So we don't have, a pipeline for everybody. So it's project specific. But for example, right now, if we have a new mobile project, they fill some form in our support system, like, hey, I have a mobile project, just throw the tools into my face. Then this support ticket comes to our mailing list, and we're replying, hey, so we're using Bitrise for mobile CI/CD, we're using App Center for apps distribution. If you want it, give me the list of the persons. And by the way, here's the link that we described the process. We have kind of the process of the introduction to the mobile thing in general. And this is the starting point that we kind of beginning to get the person acquainted with the tools, approaches, and so on.
How do you describe your job to your mother?
Okay, so I basically drawing the rectangles and arrows between them and hand it over to the developers so that they need what they need to do.
And was this enough for your parents to understand what you're doing?
Go get some tea.
Okay, we're going to ask this question from everybody that we're interviewing because it's a running joke for everybody that we can't really explain ourselves and our jobs to the parents, and we're trying to make good use of that information.
Okay, what do you tell your mom?
I always tell them that I'm basically a journalist. In fact, I'm writing copies for whatever and doing a podcast now and talk it. I do a lot of talks.
New fun activity.
Yes, I do, but it's really difficult to explain. So even if I have a much simpler job than you do.
The funny thing is that right now is being an architect means that you're not only drawing the things, but you're talking a lot. I have my whole schedule with the meetings. So, and my wife's like, this is the crazy job. You're talking all the time. And then, so when I'm at home, I was like, I just want to just go through my Twitter and not speaking anymore.
I just want some quiet.
Yeah, some quiet, please. This is kind of weird because DevOps is a culture. It's like saying an agile engineer. Do you have a dedicated agile engineer on the team? I believe not. I think the whole team should be adhering to the principles of DevOps, and you're not necessarily need to have some dedicated person. Of course, somebody can play the role of helping you with the tools because they're the most familiar with those tools. But I think the whole team should share the knowledge of the processes and try to use them.
To sum it up, do you think mobile needs its own DevOps?
I think there are a lot of specifics in the DevOps, but it's still DevOps and we need to just account for those specifics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Wait, one more question. Do you have some book recommendations or article recommendations where people can learn more about DevOps?
Yeah, definitely a book that is called Liquid Software. This is from, I can call him friend, I believe. His name is Baruch Sadagurski. Mm-hmm. He's a chief sticker officer at JFrog. Another one I already mentioned, the SRE, So site reliability engineering from Google. It's a bit more complicated, and it's not about, the mobile, but it's the DevOps, and gives a lot of insight how they do things, especially at scale. This is my second recommendation. And maybe the third one, it's not like DevOps related, but a very good book, a very good read, is Waltzing with the Bears. So it's about risk management. So I recommend this as well.
Have you heard of Phoenix Project and Unicorn
Of
Project?
course. I read it. Yeah. You can get your hands on the books about the theory of constraint. So I think it's called The Goal, and there are some subsequent ones. So yeah, please read this as well. If you like this conversation, you can always follow me on Twitter. And if you have some specific questions, just drop me an email. The contact will be down below. Subscribe to this podcast. Subscribe to the podcast about Mobile People Talks. It's in Russian, but whatever. And yeah, I had really good time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming here, and thank you. It's great that we're here in Russia. It's so special.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Vladimir.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This has been the very first episode of Mobile DevOps is a Thing with Vladimir Ivanov, Nora Bezi, and Anna Batke. Like what you've heard today, our next episode is coming next month. Until then, share this episode or follow us on Twitter. Link in the description. Happy building, folks. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.